Right.
Cameras go on. He's a pro all the way.
On.
We're all fucked up.
We're
We're
live.
already live.
We're live,
dude. We're live.
We're live.
3, 2, 1. Dang, Eric. Oh, is this thing on? Hi, I'm Jeff. Welcome to Spice Runners Lounge.
Hello there. This is General Kenobi. Hey, this is David from LastPadawan Broadcast.
Hey, I'm Todd Freeman, also known as Toad.
Hey guys, Appetite for Collectibles here.
Well, hey, I'm Seth with Rogue Squad Garage.
Hey, it's J2SO.
Hi, I am Mark. Welcome to the Space Runners Lounge.
This is Joel Hazy at Hazy Customs.
Hi, I'm Jason.
Yo, this is Evan the Collector.
Yo, it's your man Flex, and you're watching the Spice Runners Lounge.
Hey, this is Brian from Brian Makes Dioramas, and you're watching the Spice Runners Lounge.
And you are watching the Spice Runners Lounge.
And welcome to the Spice Runners Lounge.
Welcome to Spice Runners Lounge.
And welcome to the Spice Runners Lounge.
Welcome to the Spice Runners Lounge.
And you're watching Spice Runners Lounge.
Welcome to Spice Runners Lounge.
And welcome to the Spice Runners Lounge.
Welcome to Spice Runners Lounge.
Join me and together we can rule the galaxy.
Welcome to the Spice Runners Lounge.
What is up?
We made it. And our guest. Let's get our guest up there.
Welcome to the Spice Runners Lounge, where you just hang out and talk dang Ferric. I'm
actually, let's put you in the center.
Jason the Collector, right?
Jason the Collector. Everyone. What's up, everyone?
And my boy right here, this way. Where the fuck's the camera pointing? That way?
There you go.
This way.
We got James in the house.
Hey.
Kaduku the Collector in the house.
What's up, everyone?
Nice. Glad you're here, man. Glad you're here.
We got Scotty
on the keys.
Scotty Keys.
How you doing?
We got Joe in the house. Joe,
we're all doing a wave. We're gonna do the wave.
Are we delayed, dude?
A
little bit, yeah.
Let's move up. Our
only one of us is delayed right now.
Yeah.
There you go. So, now your guest is right next to you.
Fitzgerald's next to it. So tonight we have a special guest tonight, Fitzgerald Lewis. He worked on titles from Bethesda, Fallout, all the Fallout stuff, 76, Fallout 4.
Awesome.
He worked on Doom. He worked on Dishonored.
Wow.
It's a special honor to have Fitzgerald on the show tonight because he's also working on some Star Wars stuff, and he'll tell us about it later tonight.
Awesome. Great to have you, man. Great to have you.
Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Good.
So our internet's a little shit. So if we die tonight, Scott Berry has the channel. So
if we die tonight.
If we don't make
Evan's been having a lot of fun at MegaCon. J2SO is with him. I think the Spice Runners party for Evan started. What did we say about noon? 11
yesterday.
As soon as Katie Sackhoff filed the first restraining order.
Yeah. Right.
I love Katie Sackhoff. She's awesome, dude.
Yeah, she was cool.
Way better experience than Celebration. Because Celebration are rushing her like sign. Here she's like, oh, what's your name? How you doing? She actually had time for you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Kaduku's
Joel
Wi-Fi
got a
is much
signed
better.
helmet. Sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
No, Kaduku's Wi-Fi is a lot better than Eben and Jason's right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we're in the same room, dude.
We're in the same room.
We are. Yo.
Like yours is much better.
Scott, do you want to say hi to everyone in the chat? And we'll try
let's do that. Let's do that. All right, we've got in the chat, we've got EC Collecting. Colin, how you doing, buddy? Izzy. Let's go.
What's up,
Izzy?
Jedi Shizzle. My nizzle. What's up?
Yeah.
Punisher XS. Nice to see ya. Rogue Empire. Oh, doing double duty. Mr. Nicholas. Who else? Because these guys have been here earlier. They got here earlier. Sean Solo, what's up, my brother?
What's up, Sean?
How you doing? Candy, my favorite Boldlin.
Hi, Candy.
Sorry, Nicholas.
What? Hey, Candy.
What? It's all good. And of course, we have Spice Runners. So there we go. Let's see who else is in here. Brian makes dioramas, double duty.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, double D.
Yeah. You see Joe, JMC Collects. How you doing,
Hey,
man?
Joe.
What's up, man?
Matt, how you doing, Matt?
Hey, Matt.
How things going? Good to see you.
Now you guys just messed up Kaduku's frame rate.
Right, exactly. Star Wars. This is Jeff's brother. Star Wars Addict 88.
Yeah, hey, Jeff's brother.
Yeah.
No.
Robin, tribute with Robin. Hey, Robin.
Hey, Robin.
I'm sure Benjamin's right there. Hey, Benjamin. We'll just get that out of the
Robin.
way.
Ben.
Way back when.
Hey, Robin. Ben.
What's up, man?
Great show with you, man.
Joey.
Great show. Yep. And Whitey's Wicked Workshop. David.
Hey.
Awesome to see you, man.
Hey, Whitey.
Great show, dude. We had so much fun with you.
Yeah,
Just gotta
that's
say that. Frankie.
Frankie.
What's up, Frankie?
Hey, Frankie Little Rock got hit hard earlier, like a couple hours ago by a tornado. So same weather we had last Friday night. So
Wow.
Hope you're
Yeah.
okay, Frankie.
hope everybody in Little
Yeah, I
Rock's
hope-
all right.
I hope you're all right.
Everything's
Everything
okay.
goes out. Prayers for all those people. Hope you're all okay. And the ones that aren't, that you'll be taken care of quickly. Nothing bad. Dirge Designs. How you doing? Spice Runners. The Brady Bunch up here. Yes.
I'm going to go jump into Jeff's square.
Okay.
Yeah,
there
come
you
on
go.
up. Come on up.
Hey, Mark.
Mark
So
Mahoney.
internet it's kind of it's a little
There he
fucked
is.
up. So sorry, guys.
There he is.
There's
Hey,
Benjamin.
Hey, Benjamin.
What's up, Benjamin?
Don't make me in front of you.
J2SO doing double duty. For sure.
Oh, yeah.
man. Gotta love it. Who
Yeah, I've
else
been
is
trying
in
to-
here? Did I miss anybody?
Nilda.
Frankie was replying. He says, not at his house, but Little Rock got hit really hard. Local hospitals is at level 3 mass casualties. Oh, man.
Oh,
Damn.
no.
It's about 2 miles from my
Brother.
house.
Oh,
So
man.
sorry.
Dude, that sucks, dude. Prayers for Arkansas.
Elijah.
Man.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Flex.
Flex wins. What else we got in
was,
here?
Nilda, I got your
There
signature.
she is.
What's up, Nilda?
Hey.
Hey,
Good
Nilda.
morning.
Hello there.
I was noticing that Nilda, it was asking me earlier if I wanted to invite her to join Spice Runners Lounge Facebook page.
What?
What's up with that?
What, Nilda?
Yeah. What's up?
That means Nilda is not part of the group. Nilda, where are
What's up,
you?
David?
Come on. Come on.
What's up, David?
You're
He
being
even
called
changed
out.
his name back.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's famous. Well, he is famous, but he's famous now that people know who he is.
Oh, David.
Tino.
David is fucking
There we
awesome.
go. Triple S.
That's fucking-
Sean
Hey,
Stewart
Sean.
Stone. How you
Sean.
doing, buddy?
Oh,
Good to
Sean.
see ya.
Congrats on your progress, man.
OGATAT.
At Santino. Instigator. Don't instigate it. Abin tonight. That's all
Oh,
I'm
wait.
saying.
We didn't even come up
What's
with
up,
a word.
Santino?
We didn't come up with
There is no word
I don't,
tonight.
I don't know if we need a word tonight.
I think you're right. That's probably
Shit.
smart.
The word
The whole
is
time we were in agreement, we never thought about a word.
No, we can come up with something
word
for
is
the other
Because
people.
it's-
Eben, for the other
Because you know
people.
what is gamers, we have to come up with a gamer term.
How about Kenobi?
We'll do, Delta.
Kenobi. Yeah, that's not
Hey,
bad.
there we go. And Eric Montgomery. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Okay, I think we got everybody. So,
Oh, sweet.
we
Thank you,
want to
Scott.
talk about our guest.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. So our guest tonight is Fitzgerald Lewis. Fitzgerald, man, this guy has been on a lot of titles. So he's in the gaming industry. He's worked on Fallout like 76, Fallout 4, New Vegas. He's worked on Dishonored, Doom, and he's actually working on some new titles in the Star Wars universe. So
Yep.
Fitzgerald, tell us a little about yourself, brother.
So, I want to just throw this out there. I have a late night delivery that I couldn't get earlier in the day because they didn't show up. So they're supposed to come in the next like 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh, if you
When
have
that
to step
happens,
out.
I sent you all some footage so that it's kind of like a little highlights reel. If you'd love to share it with your audience, you're welcome to. And that'll just be the smallest of I'll be off my seat for just a minute here kind of deals. But yeah, like I worked at Bethesda and now EA. I've been in the industry almost a decade when I rounded up. So I, just splitting my time between the two places, really.
So what kind of role do you serve? Like, what's your specialty?
As far as EA or across the board?
Yeah, programmer, designer, modeler.
So I'm a development manager with focus on external partnerships in support of EA's larger goals, which really is just a way of saying make everything work on the back end.
Well, that's kind of important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Jenny.
So,
that's really
cool. Let me take my leave for just a second, and then I'll be right back.
Absolutely, no problem.
It's all good.
Dum, 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 dum. Yes. Okay, so do we want to come up with a word that Eben can't hear? We got to come up with something that he can't hear.
We need a safe word tonight.
Safe word, yeah.
Safe word.
Oh, I don't see it on the camera. Where are you? Right here? Right here?
J2SO, if you're feeling danger at all, just make a sign real quick. Hold it up, okay?
Yeah. If you feel you're in trouble. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, who's closest? He's already taken the three that are the closest to him.
J2, you put one hand up. James, you put the other. Y'all just keep him propped up.
Santino, this one's for you.
Santino, come up with the word tonight.
We could do game in honor of our guest.
Yeah, game.
Ooh.
Exactly. All right, Dave, this is for you.
Jedi. Fallen Order.
Fallen Order?
Yeah, Evan's going to be doing some falling.
Yeah,
Fallen,
I was going to say we just use the word fallen.
Yeah.
I wonder what his role was in that game.
Let's just keep it going. So, Jason Kaduku and I, we've been at MegaCon Orlando since yesterday.
There's MegaCon.
Yeah, and then there's drinks. The beers are 11%.
Oh,
Dragon's milk.
Yeah.
So even the Sissy Lala beer that Jason likes to drink right here, this dude. 11%. Can you believe that?
I drink my high noons. I love my seltzers.
But he can say Bethesda.
Bethesda.
Nice. Good con so far?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's been.
I would say so.
It's been good.
Trash.
It's busy. It's
getting high today.
Yeah. Tomorrow's gonna be crazy.
Oh, I met baby Leia today. Dude, she's so adorable.
She was cool.
Yeah, it was really cool actually. She came to the actress who plays little Leia. She came to the Star Wars area at the con, and the Mandalorian mercs are set up. So of course she's gonna get swarmed if not. So they made this like perimeter around her so she could take photos with the armorer and stuff. And then they made this train that she was like in the middle of this little area. She could get to the exit, and it was really cool. It was cool to see.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Awesome. Game and Evan. God damn, my name's on the.
Every time he slurs, take a drink.
Evan.
Oh, geez.
I think the new game is Evan falling over.
Yeah, right. I originally had it trashed. Fallen trashed Evan, so it kind of made sense as a story. And even Frankie's picking up on it. I bet there's a long hallway at that time.
Yeah.
But he has a long hallway.
Hey, he's back. He got your delivery.
Yes.
There it is.
So, where were we?
So let's introduce our special guest tonight. Let me move some stuff around.
Maybe special.
Yeah, real quick. I was just gonna say we picked the words of the night. Okay, so every time this word is said, Fallen, Game, or Eben, or somebody types it in the chat, that's when you're supposed to take a drink. You're gonna hear this. So I apologize to our guest if this becomes annoying. I do apologize, but that's kind of part of our thing here. So just ignore it. And while you're talking, if it goes off, you don't have to do anything. And again, you don't have to drink alcohol. I've got coffee here, and I've got a upper energy drink. So I go up, and then I come back down. It's all good. So, go ahead, Evan. There it is. There.
Jason is the host because they gotta update some shit right here.
Our computer's going slow, so Scott, you guys can. If you could blow him up and stuff, and we could talk to him about.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the layout?
Yeah, it's a little slow. I'm having trouble with
this one.
Yeah, so Fitzgerald.
Oh, that's awesome background.
Let's put Fitzgerald on the big screen.
There we go.
He's up.
So Fitzgerald, tell us about Mapuzo Outpost and what got you into Star Wars, man.
Sure. Well, I think everybody has their kind of childhood memory when it comes to Star Wars. My first Star Wars in theaters was The Phantom Menace.
Okay.
And so everybody has, I think their thing that they think about when they think about Star Wars. And for me, I probably had kind of fond memories of Star Wars, with just kind of a developing interest in sci-fi, a developing interest in space at a young age, and then just kind of the escapism of Star Wars. And so that would lead into interests really in any kind of capacity around sci-fi, anything. Whether that was eventually Mass Effect or Halo. I've tried to explore every kind of IP that has some kind of aspect of sci-fi in it. But besides that, kind of going back to Star Wars, I think what stuck with me from Phantom Menace onwards was really just how the worlds felt. I'm sorry, not the worlds, but like the world of Star Wars felt believable because it was lived in. It was weathered. It was
right.
Gritty.
Absolutely.
And, I think that adds a huge part of, regardless of what era you're a fan of, the believability of Star Wars, the possibilities of Star Wars, and what I think everybody kind of, whatever prequel you're in, or prequels or sequels or, the originals, like what era you're interested in, you probably have that, tie to it because of the characters you love, because the worlds felt real, whenever you watch them. And like, I think it's those pieces that kind of stuck home for me.
Yeah. It was totally believable. I mean, I was watching Buck Rogers recently, right? Because Evan had brought it up. There's one.
Yes.
And it's like, I love this show, but, you see the ships are like, it looks horrible, and it's done, what, 2 years later than when Star Wars was done. Yeah. And Star Wars sold it. You're 100%. I mean, as a kid, I totally, it sold me. It was real to me. It still is to some extent,
Well, I think it's cool too. You talk about seeing Phantom Menace for the first time in theaters. Obviously, you'd seen the original trilogy, but I think it's amazing the contrast there, because you got the original trilogy, things that look lived in, like you said. Because if you go and look at the expanded novels and things, all that material was repurposed, right? So it looked dingy. It was broken down. Then you have the prequels where things are new and kind of lush and pristine. It's just an interesting contrast before, the dark times of when ships were dirty and repurposed metal. What's up, George?
What's up, George?
What's your favorite movie?
Probably Revenge of the Sith.
Wow. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Who's your favorite
There's
character?
something about seeing really we've seen the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and Obi-Wan was, a character that I really, since Obi-Wan's introduction in A New Hope, and then, his younger self in Phantom Menace, I think I just love the idea of this wise old hermit, and just kind of seeing him grow into that wise old hermit, and seeing kind of the trauma that would develop following the events of Revenge of the Sith, and how that kind of brought it full circle. So certainly that, and then I fell in love with the clones. I love the designs of their armor. I love the designs of the clone ships. The kind of idea of being a clone, but also having camaraderie with your brothers in the war and that kind of thing, while knowing that you all have the same DNA as kind of in the background of all that. It's just a very interesting dynamic.
Well, that's what I do love about Bad Batch now and Clone Wars is it really built upon that idea of brotherhood. Right. And these guys they weren't just disposable clones, right? They were people that really had a life and camaraderie.
Yeah.
So of all the clone armor, what's your favorite?
Wolf Squad.
Yeah.
Shit, nice, dude.
Hell yeah.
Perfect answer.
But I would say that if we were talking about the games, it would be this one.
Oh, nice.
I think that
game is one.
A Cobalt design or something like that. I could be wrong about it without having the game open in front of me. Just because it's a very cool paint job for me.
Mm-hmm. Is he like he must be an ARC trooper?
Oh, well, this would have been the design for the ARC Trooper in Battlefront 2.
Yeah,
specifically. Okay. And it was just because it has that kind of hex style in the center near the fin.
Yeah, I see that. That's pretty cool.
So that's why I really liked it. I like designs that have layers, so that you can kind of tell a story by layering either materials or textures or paints or even all three. So it gives it the idea of where it's been, where it could go, and why they made it the way they did as far as classification and those kinds of things.
So
yeah, that would be a nightmare to paint.
Yeah.
Do you do anything like that? Do you build anything, models, paint, any of that?
Of late, not so much, but because I've been focused on kind of my basement project that I've been working on, it's essentially a full basement remodel to make it kind of like our own personal slice of, a Star Wars movie set, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
Well, I see you got some IG heads there that you're working on.
So you have a few collectibles behind you. What else do you collect?
Really, I prefer 1/6 scale statues, 1/4 scale, somewhere in that for the statues, or if I'm going smaller than that, something that you wouldn't be able to tell that you bought it at a toy store or something on the shelf,
Yeah, something with a badass diorama.
Yeah, and so like if I'm buying like a collector's a collector's edition of a game, I'm going to probably be a harsher judge of what I'm purchasing, because I some collector's editions, they tend to do a really great job or go in the exact opposite direction for their statues or their pieces that they include in the editions. So like for example, I really liked the second God of War that recently came out, because they had this really kind of fantastic hammer, which you can see in the background there.
This is Thor and Odin.
Yeah, and so it's like, when I'm picking collector's editions, I try to make sure that it's going to have something that's either like a really fantastic art book, which would be my first preference, because I'm someone who likes to have a couple of art books on the coffee table. But if I can't get an art book, then I'll go for like a high-end kind of statue or figure or something like that.
Yeah, nice.
Frankie was asking, what are some of the current projects being worked on, if you can talk about it?
So what I can tell you is, you've got Jedi Survivor, and it's not April yet, so I will say next month. But I would say beyond that, the best way to answer that curiosity is to go onto any studio's website and look at the jobs they're posting. And then what you can do is figure out what kind of platforms they say that they have a need for. Are they working on next generation systems? Are they working on PC? That kind of thing. And that can clue you in to what a studio might be working on up until the time when they announce it. So like you go to any website like Epic's website or Bethesda's website, and if it'll usually say, hey, we need someone that has experience with first-person shooters. And if you go and look at their announcements, do they have any first-person shooters that they've announced? If not, then that's probably on their current unannounced suite of titles that are yet to kind of go into the mainstream.
Gotcha. Very, very cool. So what got you in? Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was gonna say I like the Mass Effect ship in the background. That's cool.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's definitely it's so nice and clean, and it looks well put together the way you got it spaced out. It's a great background, but probably there's probably a lot more you got going on in there that's just going to look amazing when you're done.
Yeah.
But I was curious. I was like, how did you get into this industry? What got you in to do it?
I think every person that's held a controller at some point has thought, hey, I want to work in the industry because it seems really cool. So I would say that for me, it's taking that initial thought and then deciding, okay, can I make this a reality? And so some people prefer the safety of a known, kind of career, and so they go away from those kind of creative endeavors. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think I considered it a calculated risk because I'd rather be working at something day in and day out that I'm happy, that I enjoy, that challenges me creatively and artistically, than collect the paycheck and try to do my hobbies on the side. I was never going to be someone that could enjoy a life like that. Based on my personality anyways.
That's cool that you had that honesty about yourself. Yeah! So how did you get your foot in the door?
It's a lot of people will probably say this word, but it's equal parts persistence and being in the right places at the right time in most cases.
And if you know somebody.
Yeah.
Another one.
But that's the easier way in, is knowing somebody, because it's an industry where they prefer to hire people based on trusted friends of friends because of the nature of non-disclosure agreements and protection of their IP, their franchises, that kind of stuff. So
I would think your middle name's got to be NDA with everything.
Yeah.
Or at least you demonstrate that on your social media.
Mm-hmm.
Nostradamus, Devin Anthony? Is that what?
No.
No.
What was your first gaming console? What'd you grow up with?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Good one.
Sega Genesis.
Nice.
As far as house ownership.
Me, it was the original Atari, and I saw Space Invaders when I closed my eyes, going back and forth.
Atari, Nintendo.
Turbo Graphics.
Oh, Turbo Graphics Boss Adventure.
Was that Bonk? That Bonk guy? Whatever.
Yeah.
Graphics? Yeah.
We'll get to Frankie's question here in a second, but I was go ahead. I didn't want to cut anybody off, but I was going to ask something.
It was pretty much Sega Genesis, N64, and then GameCube for me. Those were my early years. So I missed out on PS1.
But you came in and you saw the evolution. I mean, we had very blocky graphics when I was a kid. Very blocky, and then all of a sudden it started looking more realistic and where it is now, and it's like, so you were learning, like, were you learning coding and everything else around this time or at certain time?
No, I would say that I didn't engage in the aspects of game design and the history of game design until probably my early teens. I was a consumer of games and a customer of games up until my early teens, and then I started to dig into the puzzle of how games are made, and I think a large part, I'm going on a long answer for the question, but I think a large part of really what got me thinking about I could actually get into games was playing. I don't even know if my best friend knows this story, but But basically, because it's like, that self rumination that we all do day to day or week to week, and it's like you kind of forget about it after you take it for granted, I guess. But like, I played the Jedi Outcast series, and that was where I first started to dig into game files and stuff like that. I played Star Wars Galaxies as well during that time, but that you couldn't really mod online games. But I was modding, really, I should say, downloading other people's mods and working on either modifying existing content and learning how it all worked, the file structures of games, and just putting in your own characters into the Jedi Outcast games, that kind of stuff. Whether it was putting in a clone trooper in a game that never would have had that, character from that, or sorry, those types of characters, from those eras, that kind of stuff, and just making it work as a playable character in the game. And that really kind of like expanded the experience of playing a game like that.
When you went to like college or whatever you did after high school, did you seek out education that was game centric or?
So I went to one of the first programs in the country that was accredited for a game design program. But basically they were kind of still finding their footing as far as how they wanted to set up the way that they would approach those programs, what kind of core education versus extracurriculars and that kind of stuff. And I consider myself lucky to have been in a program that was finding its footing, because nowadays when you join the any kind of game design program, you pick your discipline, and that will give you a set of classes that helps you become a master of that discipline. But the program that I did, since they were trying to decide kind of how they wanted to approach it, we got a sampling of everything. So we kind of became master of none but Renaissance people out of that program. And so I learned how to mix music using digital software. I learned how to create compositions in some classes. I learned how to program in some classes using and so at the end of it, you had your capstone project, and that was to build a game using the entire classroom together. And that gave us the opportunity to kind of dig into our interests, in the long run for the discipline that we wanted to pursue for a career. But it also gave people the chance to know what their peers were doing. And so we were more effective in the project because of that, I think. And I think they're still one of the few colleges that kept that program set up that way, instead of, doing specific focuses, which I think, to their credit, has led to a lot of their students experiencing career success.
Where was that at?
George Mason in Virginia.
Okay.
I think that kind of answered Kaduku's question with kind of how did you get started? And he's right there. Just speak. You don't have to be on the chat. Yeah.
So how long does it take, like when you like Jedi Fallen Order, like when y'all start a game, like from start to finish to get it out there to the public?
Sorry.
It really depends on the scale and scope of the game. So I couldn't really give a concrete comment because every game is different. But I'll do my best. You look at what they intend to do with the game, and so maybe they'll say we want it to be a linear game where you go from point to point, and you're playing as a character that has a sword or a gun or something like that. And if it's you're going from point A to point B, now you know that you want to design your levels with kind of modularity in mind, so that you can reuse some of the environments that you build. So maybe you'll build they call it modular kits, basically, but the idea of building set pieces that can go inside of an environment and then be reused in another environment, but you just change the colors or textures on some of them so that you can reuse them, and it cuts down on development time.
Yeah.
So if you look at games from Bethesda Game Studios, they'll often essentially take their assets that they've built, whether that's like a cabinet or a dungeon, and they will use sections of those, kind of like Lego pieces almost, to build out dungeons in different kind of styles. So, kit version A, kit version B, and then you can overlap certain versions to make different levels. And so that reuse allows them to cut down on development time. So when you look at every game, it's really just a question of, what are the goals of the game? Who's the intended target audience? And then from there, how big do they want the experience to be? So they, for the longest time, the idea of, an adventure game has been, you go from, one end of the map to another, you collect the items in the environment, you fight creatures along the way, and then you rescue the character at the end if it's kind of the older style of adventuring, or you complete kind of story elements along the way. And so games have been kind of evolved, and the scale of them has increased substantially, and it's become as big as any kind of movie production in many cases.
Yeah,
so
it looks like it. Frankie had a question here
because it's like, sorry, it's just difficult to answer a question, because it's just not an answer that applies to every single game. But generally speaking, you have a pre-production phase, a production phase, a polishing phase, and then you have the final phase, which is, the release phase, where you'll have making the game, as clean as you can with what they call day one patches nowadays. And then you release it out to the public, and then after that, it's patch one, where they're trying to make as many fixes based on complaints that are seen online or sent out to them, more or less.
Like Dave was asking, are they considered static meshes? What that is?
So a lot of... I'm just thinking around the answer to that. Static meshes are whenever you have a model in a game, whether that's a box or a prop or a gun, the mesh is the, you'll have the paint on top of your gun, or the texture on top of the character, and the mesh is what tells the game to wrap that texture around the so the paint job, right? Like, for example, this helmet, right? It would say, a mesh would tell you where to apply different parts of the paint in the game.
Gotcha.
So a game engine basically is when you're asking about a static mesh, they have dynamic meshes now, as well as static meshes. It's outside of my realm of knowledge, so I'm doing the best I can to answer it. But basically, it depends on how the character needs to be set up. If it's a character creator, they may use different types of meshes nowadays. Static meshes are more typically used for things that don't have to move in the game.
Nelda's asking, do you play any old school video game consoles?
I used to. As we, kind of changed our TVs, TVs don't seem to have ports for older consoles more and more often.
Yeah.
So it's, I could have kept a CRT, but I didn't end up doing that. So I get most of those old gameplay experiences through the online platforms now that they have. So like with Nintendo, you can do SNES games through Nintendo Online.
I keep missing that word. I'm sorry, guys.
Game Pass for Xbox has some of their older games. It's I think the same with PlayStation. They have, really they've been trying to, for at least the biggest publishers, bring some of their old games onto their online kind of subscription platforms so that you can play them. So that's kind of
Frankie,
how I kept up with it.
Gotcha. Frankie is asking, do you feel that microtransactions are going to be less than or what we expect to get in more games?
I think it depends on the game. If the game is meant to be something that is, if it's meant to be something that has a long life to it, for example, like a Fortnite, then microtransactions are going to be key to the success of a game like that. And microtransactions really, do I want to buy a character skin so that I can look like Obi-Wan in Fortnite, something like that. And so, depending on the style of game, the type of game,
it's too hard to keep up.
Yeah.
That's a death one. Go ahead. I'm sorry, man.
You guys will be keeling over by the end of this.
Right.
But it depends on really just the way that the game is meant to be played out in the long run. Is it going to be something that has, a long shelf life versus, an experience that you play, you experience the story, and maybe there's an expansion so that you can play a little bit more of the story once they release it, So it's things like that it will determine whether there's going to be microtransactions or not. Even with single player experiences, they'll typically include a couple of cosmetic microtransactions. So depending on the game you're interested in, that'll tell you a lot about whether there'll be microtransactions or not.
Do you have any role in Fallout?
What was that?
I was wondering if you had any roles in Fallout.
So the Fallout that I actually spent the most time on would have been Fallout 4. I started at Bethesda. They had just released the original Skyrim at the time, and I would have been my first project at Bethesda was the Elder Scrolls Online.
Oh, nice.
And then eventually I made my way onto a couple of games in between, then leading on to Fallout 4.
That's awesome.
I would have liked to have worked on some of the earlier Fallout titles, but Fallout 4 would have been my first.
Nice. Nice.
What do you feel about, like, I think it's kind of been an issue for gamers, some gamers, that the exclusive game that is, it's only Xbox or it's only PlayStation, that kind of thing. Like, there were games that, like, a PlayStation player might be excited they thought was coming, and then there's an announcement, right. No, it's not coming. And what's your kind of take on that? I know it's it's all about trying to get people to switch consoles or buy another console and that kind of thing. But
that's a good question.
It's a great question, and I have to tread lightly because non-disparagement clauses, right? But
right.
Let me think. I think it's equivalent to kind of subscription models for like Disney Plus or Netflix, right? It's the same logic. It's, to get people to come over to their side. And, I think it's a part of any business model that you're going to see, especially as games move into subscription models. I think Netflix is working on really a couple of games nowadays. So they've been doing that for a while, and I don't know if I haven't been keeping, kind of an eye on the pulse of their titles, but I believe if they haven't released anything, they're soon to release things. And so I'm fairly confident that as they make those releases, we'll see them show up as options that you can play as part of your Netflix subscription, and so I think the same logic applies to consoles, just with the difference being that you're paying for the console plus the games.
Right. Well, it's also the it's the Apple model, if you will. Right. iTunes started that because if you can get to, I don't know, whatever the magic number is, 75,000 subscriptions, it's self-sustaining at that point. Mm-hmm. So everybody's going that way, and which we'll talk about here in a minute. On the music side, you're also seeing that with plugins and things that are going subscription service, or video like Adobe or whatever. Everything's going into a subscription service. And it's because of that exact model, exactly what you just explained. Sure.
So I think, try to give some kind of answer, so I don't come across as trying to avoid the question. I think that it's been a part of the games industry since really early PlayStation, because it would have started with just making, the original PlayStation 1 would have started with their franchises that they developed. And then that went into, as more and more game studios started to show up on the map, they found their places to call home. And then we went into the idea of this game has always been on PlayStation, so therefore it should be on PlayStation in the future. So I think it's a product of an environment where they developed the games for the hardware. And then since the hardware has kind of normalized across the development, process, now it's more of a software question.
Yeah, I played the original. I don't even remember what the game was called, but Bungie way back was they developed for Mac.
Yeah.
And so I played a few of those games back in the day, and albeit pirated, but I played them. But and then they got bought, and I think they were developing. What's the one with Master Chief?
Halo.
Halo. Thank you. They were developing. I saw some stuff on the Mac or heard about some stuff on the Mac, and then it went to Microsoft bought them, and it went PlayStation or went Xbox. So, kind of the big kickoff for their thing. So, it's always been something that it's always been there, but it's been interesting to kind of see who's doing what and why and all that kind of thing.
Brian, the game you're looking for is Marathon.
Yes, thank you very much. Love that game.
That's awesome.
That was a good one.
That's a good fucking callback.
Yeah, Marathon for Mac. I think they did Marathon 2 also, and then somebody figured out what they were as far as a game studio goes, and we're like, hey, we develop these things. So.
Right.
Yep.
Darth Kenobi, Santino had asked, what should we expect as Star Wars games in the near future? Any idea?
I think...
Because I'm wondering if it goes into what Frankie's asking here. Do you feel VR is going to have more games developed for that format?
I think they're actually separate questions, and so I'll take a stab at both. For Star Wars, I think you can expect to see, a mixture of tie-in games over time. Not necessarily speaking as to when or how, but more about just intent. So tie-in games to existing or pre-existing properties, and then content that will have its own story, in the vein of Cal Kestis's story or things like that. And so it really, regardless of whether it's Star Wars or anything, there's always an approvals process when you have existing story, so that you don't, to the best of your ability, break continuity, because you have that kind of fine line that you want to make. And so you look at the Elder Scrolls, right? They had, you would have had Daggerfall and Arena, Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, and so those games would have set up the franchise of the Elder Scrolls, and then that led into the Elder Scrolls Online, Elder Scrolls Legends, and Elder Scrolls Blades, which was, each of those had their own version of lore, and so they eventually had to hire a lore master, and I think that person works at their studio in Hunt Valley, which is not the Bethesda headquarters, but they're an hour and a half away, give or take. But that's just because you have so much content that you have to keep in line so that you can, take the direction of a franchise in a certain way. And so it becomes a question of adding to the existing canon, I think, and so they may eventually, explore outside of the canon, which you could see them probably doing with the Knights of the Old Republic remake, just because it's such a popular game that it makes sense to revisit a property like that. Excuse me. And then, on the other side of the coin, they've got so much in the way of Star Wars content that's been coming out that they're probably going to want to make sure that, for as many movies or TV shows that come out, there's at least a couple of games that tie into those parts of the canon, I would say. So I think that's my at least 2 cents around that. But as far as VR, we've already seen content for Star Wars come out on Oculus. Well, I think they call it Meta now. So Meta Quest and what else was there? There was stuff for the HTC Vive. The Darth Vader series, and then there's Tales from the Galaxy's Edge. And I think they also did an extended version of that content for PSVR 2, that headset, which has released now. So if you buy that version of the game for PSVR 2, you get extra content to go with your PSVR 2. And so that was effectively exclusive launch content for PSVR 2. So I think that the answer to your question is absolutely, as far as VR goes, because it's a unique way to interact with Star Wars, or really any property. And, you kind of get your own 2 eyes in the world, up close and personal. And there's nothing like going behind the bar of like a cantina and just looking behind it. And the development process for VR games is just vastly different, because you have to think about things like, people and their sense of balance, their sense of spatial awareness and that kind of stuff. And so you need people that can test around those things and develop around those things, because people can get sick from VR, in the same way that they might get sick from motion sickness or things on TV that strobe and cause kind of seizures.
Epilepsy.
Or drinking from 11 on.
So it's a delicate balance developing for VR for sure, but I would say definitely.
All right. I had a question. Music end, because that's another side of you, right? That's what's on your YouTube channel, some tracks that you've done and things. Yeah. What got you into doing your own music, and kind of like, what do you use, and some other things? Just curious.
So I would chalk it up to the software I learned from my game design days. I've been using the same software, and it's really just a bunch of kits, that have, it's a drum kit, or it's, percussion. And so I'm just picking out the kits that I want to use for the track as I kind of get that inspiration. And then whether I'm listening to a song I like from something that already exists, and then I want to make my own version of it, it's striking that fine line between copy my homework but change it a little, versus like doing your own thing. And so I would say I wanted to make my own version of Star Wars music, for a couple of purposes. I would say that, to say I did it, is probably a large part of it. And then to be able to put something out there that my fellow, content creators could use in their own stuff, because it's like, you go on to YouTube and you really, there's there's music that isn't licensed that you can use, fair use, that kind of stuff, but there's nothing in the realm of Star Wars sounding music. So I wanted to try and achieve that. And I don't know if others have done it. I haven't really investigated into that, but at least for me, it was, well, this is something I want for myself, and I think it would help others, so let me make it available to others. And so
that's really cool.
You can go on like Facebook and Instagram and just look up, Mapuzo Outpost, and then just add that music to your reel now.
Nice.
And it's the full album, 1 or 2.
So what instrument or instruments do you play?
I don't play. So I'm literally just doing software editing.
Gotcha. So it's just putting loops together like Fruity Loops or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
I don't have any skill. It's just a lot of dabbling until I'm joking. I probably have some skill, and I'm
well, obviously you do. If you make it cohesive, then yeah, there's some skill minimum, right?
Sure.
And it sounds like you're above that, so that's great. Awesome. And
mainly
what is a software that you like to use for that kind of stuff?
Ableton is what I use.
Ableton Live. Are you on Live 11 yet? No, you're still on an earlier version.
Yeah, I try to avoid paying for subscriptions if I can.
Right. No, I understand. Well, very cool, man. That's great that you not only do the game and the video side of it, but you're also adding soundtracks and allowing that to be up for grabs for everybody. And that is just an awesome gift to the community. So thank you for that.
No problem. I just wanted to do cool stuff.
Yeah, you're doing cool stuff, man. You're doing cool stuff. Yeah, see, like Whitey's Wicked. So, David, Star Wars people always give back to the community. That's 100% right. And then great job, Fitz. We love your music. So, very, very cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. And even Santina says, you don't play, you create. So, awesome. And then DJ Darth Fitz was the other one. So, yeah, you got some good recognition here. That's great. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
There's a common refrain or thought around people in the games industry, and it's very true, is that it's difficult for a lot of us to play games after working on the games.
Mm-hmm.
And it mainly boils down to it's like when you've worked on a game for however long, 6 months, 9 months, you kind of need a break from it,
Yeah.
And so you'll find that a lot of the games industry folks tend to engage in other hobbies before games, which isn't to say that they won't play games. They'll happily do it, but it's just it's nice to get a breath of fresh air, once you know what the magic behind the curtain is like.
Yeah, I figure it's the same for porn stars. Sorry.
Never a dull moment.
Hey,
Go,
Fitzgerald,
honey.
So what was the first Star Wars game you ever worked on? How'd you feel about
it? That's going to be Jedi Survivor.
Oh, shit.
Wow, dude.
So that answer is still developing.
Nice. So what did you do for Jedi Survivor?
My work has been to certainly spend some time in game, but I would say beyond that, to make sure that they have what they need to make the game happen, as far as resources. And so kind of going back to a development manager might be a better way to answer your question. What my team does is we have a Rolodex of people that companies that we can recommend for a studio's needs, because they have, however many employees that they have. And so they have to, maybe they're working on content creation for the game, the core story elements, and they don't have the time to maybe fill out the environment because there's so many hours in a day. So, filling out the environment could be, making the stonework for a quarry. It could be, making a bunch of Star Wars crates. And so where my team can come in and help is we can recommend outside partners, outside of EA, that can partner up with, Respawn or whoever else to help build out those assets to make it so that the team can more effectively use their hours. And so a large part of the remit of my team is making sure that we're making cost-effective recommendations for partners that the studios can work with.
Awesome.
So that's kind of the meat and bones of what we do, but then there's also kind of just smaller day-to-day tasks that come in and that are more randomized.
So Fitzgerald, for someone that's in college right now and they want to get into the gaming industry, what's like the best recommendation you would give them to do to get started?
So, the answer changes if you have to work, a 9 to 5 as a college student type of deal, or really, a retail job around that, because a lot of what you need is time, as far as trying to get into the industry. So, with that kind of caveat in mind, you really have to spend as much time as you can putting yourself out there, whether that's going into, developer communities and working on their games and developing mods, or working with mod teams to create content for the games to show that you're capable of working on content for a game that's already released, so that when you work with that studio's tools, their tool set. And so, that's effectively, it can be a full-time job because you're developing a portfolio, to try and catch their eye in many cases. And then there are entry-level roles that often pop up at those studios, and so you can try to maybe jump in as an admin assistant or a quality assurance tester. And those are jobs that, while they require less game-oriented experience, are a great way to get your foot in the door, and they generally pay well enough that you can, continue doing your classes and have income through them while you're trying to kind of grow in the industry. And oftentimes people who start in the industry, they, like you mentioned earlier in our conversation, they'll have someone that they know that can recommend them to a role, and then they can get in that way, or they work their way up from things like quality assurance or an admin role, or even HR, and kind of go into development roles from there. Typically.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. Different. It sounds like EA has a lot of more opportunities than other companies. Yeah.
It depends. You'll often find that the smaller the studio, the more likely they are to take a risk on someone completely green. And that's because the bigger the studio, the less likely they are to take a risk, because they would rather have people hit the ground running, because they have, finances that have delicate planning around them, essentially. And so, things it's a cog in a machine that needs to keep rolling. And so things that require training, like a person who's green, they may get less of a chance than someone who's a 5-year veteran of the industry or something like that. So it is one of those things, the bigger the company, the less likely they are to take a chance on a newbie. The smaller, like an indie scene or things like that, typically will give chances to newbies, basically, before veterans. So I would say, just a good rule of thumb is figure out what games you're into, play those games, look at the pedigree of that studio, and try to get to know those people, whether that's going to a game developers conference or going to industry events, as best you can, even if you go in as like, I ended up learning about a group of students that created essentially a school newsletter to get into E3. And they ended up all getting industry jobs because they were able to, kind of knock knees with developers at E3 before E3 opened up to the public. And so it's just finding creative ways to show up where the developers are in many cases. Put a face to a name in many cases.
Cool. Kelly had asked, let's talk about your room build. Savvy Workshop and Doc Ondar Antiques room tour.
Getting called out.
Well, let's see. So we have enough space that I essentially was able to pick out kind of a couple themes per, area. So for my workshop, I decided to, I'm getting ahead of myself. The majority of the space, I wanted to theme it around Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
Just because I really I've been there twice, and I was lucky enough to go at opening when they had cast member previews, and my wife and I had a cast member friend that was able to invite us to their, extra guests that were able to come along. So we were one of the few that got to kind of experience it along with the rest of the cast. And, there's that experience of being, one of, maybe like, I don't know, 10,000 people as the first in the park, which was super special. So it's probably equal parts sentimental and just, one of the few Star Wars worlds that the public can just kind of walk through. That kind of made me want to do that for made me want to do that for the basement project. But then the other side of it is that I wanted to bring that experience home, I would say, and so I picked out for my workshop, I'm doing kind of the Savi's workshop, lightsaber building kind of theme. And then for like the media area, it's based on the Q line experience for the Smuggler's Run ride. So kind of like the feel of that area. And the cantina is going to be kind of like Oga's Cantina, but it's, smaller form factor for sure. And the office I'm in is First Order themed. So the floor has kind of like lit up vent registers that have LEDs under them, along with kind of like First Order Star Destroyer style tile.
Nice. Wow. I like the sound of that. I want Star Destroyer.
You got the
tile.
The shield from the Star Cruiser. Did you do that?
Yeah, I did. My wife and I went there as kind of like our anniversary present to ourselves.
Very cool, man.
So
that's fucking dope, dude.
Yeah, it was fun. Like we went and just had a really good time. I want to go again at some point, but it's pricey, so gotta save up.
Oh, just wait a couple more months. I'm sure the price will come down.
Yeah.
It's not doing good.
30% discount for pass holders now.
Yeah. Wow. Where are you located?
I'm in Northern Virginia.
Oh, okay. Nice. All the way on the other side. I'm over here in California, so I was just curious. Nice.
No, he's on the East Coast.
East Coast. Yeah.
Bethesda proper. So we heard about your video game stuff. So what are you doing in your man cave or Star Wars cave nowadays?
I spend more time trying to build, I guess, than I do playing and entertaining, type stuff. I focus on. Lately, I've been doing some woodworking and just teaching myself some new joinery skills and those kinds of things. But outside of that, I have a 3D printer that I probably should unwrap, because I put a bunch of saran wrap because the woodworking is just makes dust really, really quickly everywhere.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's fun to build things and make things.
It is. When you have a 3D printer, it really shouldn't be in the same room as a woodworking workshop.
No, yeah.
So
it makes a mess.
Yeah. So I've been trying to figure out, kind of where to put things for permanent spots, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
As
what are you looking to build woodworking wise? You talked about joineries. Are you doing like boxes or?
Everything that I would want to build is going to have Star Wars in it in some capacity. So I'm trying to figure out the exact way that I want to build, kind of like a permanent workbench. Because right now I've just been using, those foldable plastic tables that you can get from like a Costco or something like that for purposes. And I would really prefer to have kind of a proper workbench. So I've been inspired by the design of the workbenches that you do the lightsaber building at inside of a Savi's workshop, and I want to build one that's inspired by the shape of that. So kind of recessed edges on the top that are kind of routed out, and then kind of slide out shelves that they won't necessarily have handles because the ones at Salvi's workshop don't have handles, but they have this kind of almost European style design where you just pull on the drawer itself and it slides out, kind of soft close, soft open. So I want to do that, and I've been trying to come up with like drawing plans for that, and then so it's come up with the sketch, come up with the build plan, and then make sure I'm happy with all that, and then go into the material selection phase. So like, I think somewhere around here, I might be able to show you all.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, here we go. So
I still like this. I have to say this. Alcohol and power tools, baby. I can totally see Dave doing this. It's like, no, dude, no.
It's your losing fingers.
Yeah. You start doing the 14th annual router toss by capturing things by the bearing. No, you don't want to do that.
There's this TikTok where this person did, like a planer. So they put the planer, a piece of wood, like a really long one, through the planer, and they hold up the piece of wood and let the planer run across like a conveyor, and it's literally just on top of two sawhorses. And I'm just sitting there like, you're going to die. It's going to happen, and everybody's going to be really sad.
Every TikTok video I saw.
And it's like, I feel bad for feeling entertained by the fact that like this guy is just doing crazy stuff.
Like, right? What are they doing?
I mean, if you're familiar with a planer, it's literally just something to like slice the wood evenly,
Right.
Well, if it's a power planer, it's got feeder wheels, so it's grabbing the material and it's pulling it through. If it's a hand planer, that's a different thing.
Yeah, so they're using one that's like a benchtop planer, but holding up the plank of wood and letting the planer just run across the.
That's a little scary. Yeah, you're definitely gonna die. You're right. Yeah.
And it's like equal parts interesting and terrifying. So, but like one of the things that a lot of these like woodworking YouTube channels do is they'll take laminate formica and they will attach it to the top of their workbenches because it's a really great surface for gluing pieces together without having to worry about the glue getting stuck to the laminate.
Yeah. You can also use melamine. Yes. We also used to use Cortron, which is harder to find. It's a very slick 3/4 material. It's almost like a painted finish or baked on finish. But laminate, Formica, any of that, that works too, and that's easy to work
Great
with.
stuff, yeah.
And I want to put like 20 millimeter holes so I can put bench dogs and that kind of stuff, and then I don't have to worry about clamping as often because
have you looked at just getting like a Scandinavian bench or any of the woodworking benches that are available or kits?
I want to make it myself.
Yeah. Well, some of the kits, they'll get you like the vise and they'll get you plans, but you don't buy the bench from them. You have to build
I see what you mean. Well, I think I'd end up having to adapt a lot of it for the Star Wars design if I did get a kit, which isn't to say that I have anything against that. I haven't thought about it, My thing has been, okay, I'm doing this from scratch. How do I make it myself? So I don't really look at, the world of kits to see what I can adapt, I guess.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, you strike me with what you've done with the gaming and, of course, the music and all this other stuff. You've got to have your stamp on it heavily. Not just a small tweak that has a little bit of your stamp. You want the whole stamp. And I get that, dude. And that's awesome that you want to take it that far, So I get it.
Yeah, Fitzgerald has like a lot of cool songs on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, and it's all like centered around Oga's Cantina, which is fucking dope.
Right.
I listen to it all the time.
That's cool.
It's high praise, and I appreciate it.
Hell yeah, dude! It's fucking dope, dude.
Just today, my Formica samples came in, and so free samples of various shades.
Oh yeah. So Formica is like the name Formica. It is a brand of a company, but it got the name like we call glass cleaner Windex, right? It's not all Windex.
Right. Yeah.
That one's actually Formica. I can't see it.
They all are. But
it's like a day product. Yeah.
And
it just became the word that you call it. You know what I mean? All laminate, even though there's different companies.
Yeah.
But
so I've been trying to figure out, what color do I want to select, and that kind of stuff. Just because I think.
Have you worked with laminate before?
I have. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It's really easy. You just
contact cement both
contact
sides.
cement, and then your roller, and then you just use a router to trim the edges.
Yep.
So
that's awesome. Fellow woodworkers, love it.
Oh yeah. So Fitzgerald, I've seen you've done a lot to your room. Do you actually own a 3D laser cutter?
Yeah, I have a Gwaiki Cloud, which is supposed to be the Glowforge competitor. There's also
awesome.
Laser, and I think there's a couple of other ones. So a lot of the room builders tend to, the ones that are kind of heavily established, they'll have a laser cutter in their toolkit, as well as your various sets of power tools, those kinds of things, routers. Some of them will have CNC machines. The thing that I would love to get, if money was no issue, would be there's a machine from Wazer, and that's a desktop water jet. So then you can cut metal, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
I want to learn welding at some point so that I can make my own kind of like metal tables or metal legs, that kind of stuff from scratch.
Wow.
So, but I like learning.
Bad man, you missed this. Okay.
Oh my God, he's way behind.
Yeah.
So let's go to your Instagram. So for you, so a lot of you guys don't know Fitzgerald actually has a Instagram called Mapuzo Outpost, and this Instagram is not only just to show his room build, but to bring awareness to the community about Discord, and in the Discord he talks about how can you be a video game person in industry. So he helps you get a job and talks to you about all the different things you can do in the game industry. So it's freaking cool. So go to the Discord right here. So I don't even have to say anything. It's already on the Instagram. Mapuzo Outpost has a Discord server right there. Tell us about the Discord server.
Sure. Well, a while back, a long while back, I should say, I was inspired to create kind of a community that would give people the chance to learn about the industry, similar to the kind of topics that we've discussed in our call so far here. Do things like fireside chats with guests, and learn about how to break into the industry, learn about the various game design disciplines that exist, and just kind of be a resource for people completely free, and bring like-minded people to create kind of a pay it forward community. And so, the backdrop of all of that had to be Star Wars, because I'm a Star Wars fan.
Right.
So, a lot of the room builders, people, they'll typically pick like an outpost name or something like that. So it'll be, name of outpost and then the word outpost or something like that. And I decided, if it's going to be an outpost, it should have a community. And since I'm, in the games industry, I'd like to teach people how to get in, because so many people want to. And so it's a place where you can get kind of game industry workshops, talk topics, learn how to build your resume, learn how to build your personal brand. Because a lot of games industry hiring teams like to see that people are pursuing passion projects in their free time, because if you're doing something that you really enjoy, you're very likely to put that same kind of passion into your work.
Absolutely.
And so that's something that I've been trying to teach people who are more green and trying to break in, is that your personal brand, the way you handle yourself on social media, all of that stuff matters for the games industry.
That's awesome, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. So there's a lot of people out there trying to help you get into, help you get informed on what's out there, right? So what Fitzgerald's doing, he has a Discord where if you want to get into the game industry, if you're like a college student or just you're just wondering what to do, I got a computer science degree, or I want to go into the game industry, he has a Discord server. And in the Discourse server, you can ask questions, and he'll answer them. It's awesome, you know. Like me, like 20 years ago, I wish something like this would have existed, where I can be like, "Hey, man, I want to get into Xbox, and how do I get into it?" And then Fitzgerald is doing that now, so it's freaking awesome, man.
There's one silver lining that I'd like to share. Really, is that, you know, one of the problems in trying to get into the industry is that before COVID, you had to be located in the states that had game studios, and now COVID has made people realize, you know, we can get workers from across the globe, you know, and we just have them work from the comfort of their home, and we'll ship them a PC. And so you have a better chance now more than ever of getting into the games industry, especially with a studio you like, as long as they're willing to hire remote workers, you know. And so that gives you the opportunity to do interviews for studios that may not even be in your home state, and get that chance to get that industry job. And that's, you know, I would not have worked at Bethesda if I had had the options I had now, because I probably would have wanted to try and gone for working for like Star Wars, you know, games in some capacity, you know. But at the time that I made my applications, I was stuck to the, which isn't to say I didn't want to work at Bethesda. I mean that, like, you know, it's you're playing the dice you're given, you know. And so for me, you know, Bethesda was the closest, and I did enjoy their games, and I do to this day. And so it was a chance to, you know, work in the industry locally. But at the time, you would have been, you know, in my shoes, confined to the studios in your area, because they wouldn't have been hiring remotely. You know, so that's the silver lining that COVID brought for those wanting to get into the games industry, is you have a better shot now than ever, I would say.
Yeah, it makes. I saw the same thing. You know, it's like they were hiring, even at my company, must be local to Los Angeles and blah, 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 blah. And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden it's like,
yeah,
they're hiring remote because they realized, and it's like, that's a good thing that came out of COVID, that you can now find the best people for the job instead of who's the closest. That's one. And two, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter a lot of times, because you can do, I mean, I'm set up here to teach and train and everything else where I don't have to go into the office. So I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Like for me, I'm lucky because, like, I live in Virginia, and my wife and I purchased our first home, and, you know, I'm doing this whole Star Wars basement project. But like, working for EA, you know, prior to this, I may have had to move to California or something, you know. But I get to work from home.
You wouldn't have wanted that. No, you wouldn't want that.
Scott's like, no.
I did the opposite. I was born in Virginia, but I live in California.
Right.
And yeah, it's too expensive here, man. Stay where you are.
Oh yeah. So Whitey says, he's like, Fitz is correct. You gotta start playing with editors back in
the day I played with Unreal Editor and could have worked for Ubisoft. Yeah. But didn't want to move to Canada. So same type of thing. It's like he wanted to do the work, but didn't want to move to the different country.
Right. And like Fitzgerald was saying, it's like now it's like we got like work from home, telecommute, and there's a lot of opportunities now.
Yeah.
Is that your CNC?
Yep.
That's badass, dude. That's
dude.
Badass.
I'm gonna have to commission you for a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. I belong to a makerspace.
Nice.
I started making dioramas, if you don't know my story, but and joined this makerspace, and we have a 4x8 that I've learned within the last few months, and love using it. Love using it. Love learning that new skill.
I would have been so for that if they were more affordable back when I was totally set up.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of the CNCs I was looking at started at, $120,000, $140,000.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much this one was, but it's
I need no speeder bit.
You can get a CNC for about $100, desktop size.
What?
See?
No joke.
That's where things have gone because of technology.
You have to build it yourself, you know.
I
Versus
want one so bad. Like I seen your Instagram, and I was like, dude, I need a CNC machine. But I don't want to pay those crazy CNC prices. You know, like I see Glowforge is like $3-4 grand. I'm like, oh hell no.
The laser being able to do that is awesome. I mean, the product is fantastic, but yeah, $3 to $4 grand. You know, that's why you have friends like our guest. Hey, dude, I need this.
What laser cutter did you say you had?
My laser cutter is from GWEIKE Cloud.
Okay.
Just easier to spell it out than it is to say it.
Yeah, I've been using a thunder laser recently, so enjoy that.
That sounds like something you'd name something. Yeah, this is my thunder laser.
Yeah. It's huge.
Release the thunder.
Whoa, it's huge.
I was gonna say we got to bring your wife in here to confirm this. Wow.
It's the size of it's bigger than a washer and dryer.
Don't make me use my thunder laser.
Yeah. So Frankie says, I love Ubisoft games. Would love a Star Wars game like The Division.
I think you're likely to get it at some point.
Fitzgerald knows something we don't.
No,
well, that was announced, wasn't it? That some of those guys that had worked on The Division 2, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah.
I played Division and Division 2. I played the crap out of both those games.
Where's Nicholas?
It's just an open world version of The Division, right? I think that's what they were saying.
Yeah, and some of those guys that were like the team leads or whatever that were integral to those games were working on a new Star Wars. That's what I heard. This is a year ago. So.
Yeah. I think the game that I want to see for Star Wars is a sequel to Republic Commando.
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to get that story closed out.
There you
Get some closure.
Hell yeah.
Did you have some YouTube footage you wanted to show or link?
If you'd like. I just think your folks would like it. I made it all for you guys. So it's just the games I've worked on and some custom music to go with it.
Oh, awesome.
That's perfect.
So
shit.
It'll give me a break.
Did you send it to me, Fitzgerald?
Yeah, it's
it's in the chat. It's in the private chat.
Oh shit, my bad. I've downgraded to like a little Mac, so.
Oh, right there.
We're in a hotel right now.
Holding hands, touching.
In timeshare, hands above the table.
And
hands above the table.
I like throwing these kinds of things together because it gives people a chance to just kind of like put a name to something,
Yeah.
My lovely brother from another mother. Oh shit! This is a brand new YouTube.
I've been working on building out my YouTube channel for Mapuzo.
Oh, dude.
Are you documenting your room building? That's what I was gonna say.
It's mostly photography, but yes.
Can you guys see this?
Yeah, go back.
Yes, can see it.
Start it over.
No, I see it right here.
Yeah, we got to start over and start the music.
Yeah, I can't hear it.
I'll probably get blocked for the music.
It's his page. You're not gonna get blocked.
The music is my own music, so I think you'd be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I made it specifically for you.
Yeah, start it over.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear it?
Yeah, we can hear it. Yeah, it's a little bit quieter, but we can hear it. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, here we go, y'all.
I'm not on a mixer back home, so I don't know.
There we go.
You did this before?
Yeah.
Hey, this is dope. It's like 2 seconds now. Like, yeah, this is dope.
I played that for I think.
Oh shit!
Oh, you didn't teabag. This is badass.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah! I like some Dishonored stuff. Yeah, dude, the animation and graphics. Oh, dude.
Oh, badass.
I'm a guitar.
Oh, that grenade was cool.
That's a game.
It's one of my favorites that I worked on for sure.
You worked on that one? Oh, damn, dude.
Everything that's here up until the Star Wars stuff I've worked on. And then the Star Wars stuff is just interest highlights up until Jedi Survivor.
See, this music is so good. Like, it's the perfect like montage.
Oh, yeah.
What I did was I just took all the themes from each game and made an orchestral medley.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, that was cool.
Because I knew, you guys would worry about getting demonetized, and it's like that kind of stuff where it's like, why should you have to?
Yeah.
So the best way to get around that is make your own.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Oh, Prey. You worked on Prey?
Yep. Fun story about Prey.
Game, dude.
When I was testing, working on testing for Prey, because at the time I would have been in the quality assurance department. In Prey, you can one of the powers that you get in the game, you can transform into anything in the game world. Whether that's a chair or a table, or as long as it's something that you can interact with in the game and has physics to it, you can transform into it. And so I discovered that if you turned into a banana, and with that transformation, you can still jump, right? So you could go under the stairs of most of the areas that have kind of long stairways, and then get out of the world.
Oh man!
And it's that kind of stuff.
Of a banana, right?
That's freaking awesome, dude.
Make me a maxi pad.
Dude, Doom Eternal has been a fucking crazy game. Like James had to go to clear some of these levels. Because I'm playing Doom, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do.
I got the statue of that, and I took it all apart and cut it up and put joints on it and everything.
Nice.
That skeleton looking thing.
I've worked on so many different types of genres of games, because it's just like, you work at like a publisher, you're going to pretty much get to work on everything under the sun if they develop everything under the sun. It's always fun to, at least in my opinion, work for a publisher to get that experience of working on a multitude of genres. So like this would have been the first game I worked on, and I to this day have very fond memories of it because it was very much like guild parties and
I love this game, dude. Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, this is badass.
We had to help the dev team figure out the tuning for all the raids and boss fights because it was always like
Skyrim
too much health, at first, and then we had to help them kind of tune it back to we call it in QA, it's finding the fun. That's what the job of QA is. We help find the fun so that before the game goes out to the public. I did not work on this game. This is just fan favorite. But I wanted to include it in there because for me, I probably have put, other than Star Wars Galaxies, I've put the most hours of any video game is Star Wars Battlefront 2. So I put it in there as like a highlights reel of, you have the career interest and then you have the stuff I play.
Yeah. No, man, this is especially the thing we were talking earlier about, add-ons later and that kind of stuff. Battlefront 2 is one that came out that seemed kind of unfinished or it wasn't. Jedi. But then, I mean, they gave us so many cool game modes. You got all the prequel era stuff. I was just talking to Jeff backstage about doing the Ewoks attack.
Zombie.
Yeah, dude. So another game that, you guys, the developer, do you guys? I guess in that sense, the question I have is, with games like Battlefront, where they go and put it out, and then there's a lot of like, hey, could you add this, or we're missing out on this, and then does that turn into like a big group meeting and hey, what can we develop for later down the line, or is it kind of like let's give them part 1 to 5 and then we're going to slowly release 5 to 10?
It depends, so thinking in the context of Star Wars, right? Like I think it was it 2017 when it originally released? Does that sound right to you?
Battlefront 2 I think was like 2017, 2018.
So for the group, let's just do a little bit of a thought exercise. Like what Star Wars stuff, movies or TV show wise, would have released around then?
2017.
My brain's blanking, which is why I'm asking.
2015 was Force Awakens. 2017, if you're talking the movies,
Yeah,
I think
Rogue One came out in 2016. Force Awakens was 15. Last Jedi was 17.
Yeah, that would be it.
Last
Okay,
Jedi,
so
Solo.
let's talk about that, because that's what I need to answer your question. So you're going to release the game, right? You're going to want to cover the hits, right? So those are going to be 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and then include ideally a little bit of tie-in content at some point, right? Now, if you're a game studio and you're working on licensed content, you're going to be working with the license. Is it licensor, licensee?
Licensee. Yeah.
Yes. So they'll clue you in so that they can get their tie-in content, and then you would go ahead and build out that content. And with any kind of development cycle, there's we talked about pre-production phases, and then the so they call them the concepting phase, right? So that's pre-alpha. Then there's alpha, where you're going to build what do you call it? The kind of like environment of the game. So you'll see the places the characters will walk around. You'll see maybe the weapons, but they won't have any paint on them. Which we would say textures, that kind of stuff, right? And the reason I mention all that is then you get to the beta phase, and that's where you start to bring in the things that make the game alive. And then there's the polish phase, so that's post beta, and that's where we go ahead and we get the bugs fixed. Quality assurance is doing their work to just kind of go through it, and then you go to the launch period. And so that's in the music industry they call that the gold master, right? And it's the same thing as the GMC candidate. So that's the version of a game that's the closest to what's going to get printed on the disc for retail, right? Okay. Same as the music industry. And so that kind of locks you in for whatever you fixed up until that point, right? And then after that, you have the ability nowadays with what we call day one patches. So those are all the things that are submitted to Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, so that people can download it and experience the most polished version of the game. And that's something that you're typically releasing, along with day and date the launch cycle of the game. So it hits retail stores, people go and buy it, they pay their $60, and then they go plug into their system, and it's like, hey, you need to update the game. That's the day one patch, right? And then after that, they're taking all the feedback about bugs with the game, and that's going into launch content that's post launch, right? So as far as the meetings around what to put into the game as follow-up, all of the stuff that happened prior to release will have that tie-in content planned in, right? Then you have the marketing around it, where they're studying what the mainstream is saying, whether that's customers of the game or online forums or Steam comments, YouTube comments, that kind of stuff. So the marketing teams are going to be studying all of that, getting their data so that they can do their analysis around it, right? And then they're going to say, okay, what do we want to include based on what our licensor. Did we say it was licensor? I'm forgetting. I apologize.
I think it was licensee, but
licensee.
I think that's you or the game. Game would be a licensee.
Yeah.
So Lucasfilm in this context would say hey, we're releasing this thing. Make sure you have this in the game.
Right.
And so that's like the must-haves, right? And then the next piece of it is, what is the most common ask in the public?
I had a quick question. And I think somebody had brought it up. If you guys are working on a game of something that's going to be including stuff that's coming in the future, are you privy to that? Like, hey, we're going to have, like for instance, let's say it's before Mandalorian, and you're doing you're going to do a Mandalorian game. They would probably send you, this is what the Razor Crest looks like. This is kind of what he's going to look like.
They would, because they have to develop it.
Yeah.
So it's a series of tiers of need to know. Right. So first we'll get the people who make the decisions that are need to know. Then it's the people who create the content that are need to know. And so it's, at each stage of the planning and production process, it goes down the line where people are clued in as they need to know in order to develop in time for a release. So the reason I went back and I did all those steps to kind of re-engage our thoughts around it is just to kind of put a timeline. So you have the original game timeline up to launch, and then you have the study process around what the public wants, and what's the most likely thing that we can do, because there might be some unrealistic asks. So they're like, maybe, we want to make it so that you can have space to ground combat in Battlefront 2, which would require completely revamping the game, Right. And that's, we see so many people want it, but it's just unrealistic, because that would take another 2 years.
And I would think too, you also run the risk of the trend. It's hot now when you started working on it, but a year or 2 years when the game's ready, it's still going to be viable at the same,
There's always a time that's required to make any kind of entertainment product, and get it out to stores, whether that's digital or otherwise. And there's a planning process around that. So they have to basically pick and choose their battles in many cases. It's very much like a triage process for like battlefield medicine, if you will, where it's just like, we want to do it. We would love to do it. We're fans of the darn franchise, but it's not realistic because we have budgets that say we can do this much,
So Fitzgerald, what can you tell us about Fallen Order 2?
You kind of froze.
Fallen Order 2, yeah.
Can I tell you?
It's called Fallen Order 2. End of line.
I can talk about what is in the trailers, and I can talk about, I can give context to what's in the trailers, but that's about it. So, within the context of an NDA, you look at the previous game versus the current work in progress, right? Leading up to release. So we had maps that were kind of linear. You would go from one point to the other, completing the story along the way in Jedi Fallen Order. So now, the goal has been to address a lot of those like quality of life, requests that have come from customers. So it's give me more that I can do in the game environments, for one planet or another planet. And with that kind of fulfillment of that request, there are things that have to come with it. So if you're going from, the bottom of a hill to the top of a hill, for example, using a very basic example, let's assume that this is Jedi Fallen Order, you're going up, you're fighting stormtroopers, that kind of thing, right? Your next area, the map, right? That's, your basic Fallen Order experience. And people are like, well, this doesn't really feel like a planet. It feels more like a platforming game like Metroid or something like that. Nothing wrong with that. But I want more Star Wars in my Star Wars, right? Which is like planet exploring and like the lore and of things being left in an area or something like that. And like the what and why of it, right? So if you do that, now you've expanded the map, right? So with the expansion of any map, like think of like whenever you go to the mall, right? If a mall was just one store, you wouldn't go to the mall. You have to have things to do in the mall, right? So they have to they've expanded out the map. Then they have to fill it with things to do. They have to fill it with things to see. They have to make it so that you can go around these places conveniently, right? And the next step of that is traversal. So where it would have been convenient, you have a double jump, that kind of thing. You're going up a hill, you only need a double jump. But now you need ways to traverse an environment, things to go around. So you have the domestication of animals, because that's a Star Wars thing. Bogo with Obi-Wan, the Tauntauns, and so now you see in the trailers, there's the domestication of animals because of the nature of an opened up environment where you can explore it. And so it's just those quality of life things that have to come with, because like game development is, it builds upon itself. It's very much like the idea of like algebra, where it's like you learn the building blocks, then you do the more difficult stuff. And so game development, you have your base building blocks that make the game function, and then everything that makes it fun, and then everything that needs to be added for flavor. And in the case of Jedi Survivor, it's expanding upon what made the game successful in Jedi Fallen Order and fixing the things that made the game inconvenient, or adding quality of life from a game standpoint.
So Fitzgerald, one question I do have is, when you go in industry and are you looking for like a particular type of game? Because it sounds like when you're doing these games, you come into it not really knowing a whole lot other than you're creating something. So how does that normally work?
Good question.
I think, how familiar are you with Respawn, like as a studio and the games that they've made?
Not too much with that particular one.
Totally fine. But I'll just give like a basic synopsis and answer your question with that synopsis. But basically, you take a studio like Respawn, right? Their bread and butter was first-person shooters for the longest time. And so it was Titanfall and
great game.
Other games that came before that are just, I'm blanking and I apologize. So you take a first-person shooter, like a studio known for first-person shooters, no one in a million years would have thought Jedi Fallen Order would have come from this studio, And so it was like, they are capable. They make excellent games. So it's a risk, right? To take a studio that's known for something and ask them to do like a Metroid style game with Star Wars elements and Dark Souls elements, right? But now, because they've been doing first person shooters for so long, there's a company risk to invest in a new genre for a studio that's known for something, right? And the developers in that studio, the artists, the programmers, they may want to do something different because it's like, eating the same sandwich gets old after a while, So they decide, okay, we want to make this kind of game, whatever it is. Can we then fit a story into the genre that we've selected? So what was Fallen Order? It was a Metroidvania, Dark Souls-like game. And this, the reason that a lot of these classifications came about is that you would see, like, over the last 10 years that there would be new genres that would develop, and there would be a trendsetter. So Dark Souls is, it's known for being these extremely difficult games where you kind of level up your character over, time through a lot of personal challenge along the way. A lot of dying, really, to get there. And so they set the trend as being super difficult, right? So Jedi Fallen Order, they wanted to make a difficult Star Wars game, but what is a Metroidvania? It's a collectathon. You get your power-ups, you go around, and you collect everything. And you empower your character through the strife. And the things that come out of a situation like that is you have a player who initially feels like, super green as a character, but they empower the character through that hero's journey. And it tells that narrative, just like, it was the perfect selection of genres and types for a Padawan learner who was trying to survive Order 66 and come out of that unscathed as much as he could, So from a developer's, standpoint, picking out the genre and then, their story, working with Lucasfilm, they did a really good job of just kind of picking out those disparate elements to bring it into a core piece from a studio that wouldn't have been known for that. So they took a risk on everything, and it paid off. And a lot of these studios, you look at Bethesda, right? They are making Starfield now. And for the longest time, they wanted to make a sci-fi game, but the technology wasn't where they wanted it to be for Starfield. Whether that was the gaming platforms, because it's, they're known for releasing day and date on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. So all three had to be equally capable in order to release Starfield. And so that's why we're finally seeing it with the current generation, Xbox Series X, Series S, PlayStation 5, and PC, because they just wanted to wait for that right time to release their vision for a sci-fi game. And it's basically, those are the kinds of decisions behind the scenes that influence why they select things the way they do. Every studio usually is looking at all the things that make the game like what it is that they're known for, and also where they want to go as a development team, because people don't like to make the same thing over and over again. People get bored of it. It's like you get this burnout that occurs when you look at the same thing, year after year after year. You can't necessarily be as passionate about it, and so the Respawn examples are really from a game history example, as well as a developers looking at other developers' example. It's a really pertinent example of it's okay to take risks if you can pick the right mixture for the cake. So I don't know if I answered your question there fully, but I did my best.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I did have a question. So, like, for example, Fallen Order, I currently run on a PS4. I now have to buy a PS5 for Fallen Order, which I am doing for that game specifically. Is that because they for a while they'll do next gen PS4 and then they start phasing it out. Is that just with is that like a choice of the studios, or is it just that's where the technology is, and if you guys want to build these games at this epic of a level, you just have to keep moving forward with it?
It can be both or neither.
Okay.
So you think about development, right? When you get, say, a developer's version of an Xbox, right? So that's an unlocked non-retail version that they can use to develop and test the games that they work on, right? So they're, whatever version, so they have like, let's call it month 3.5 of a game, and that's, version 3.5 of that game, because it's cyclical where they're making updates every time. They have to test and make sure that it's functional. So there comes essentially a threshold where, as they develop the game, they realize, okay, it's playable on these systems and it isn't playable on these systems. Can we commit the development team? And we call this tech debt. The idea being, it's going to require us to spend these many man hours or whatever on this system to make sure that it's functional, and we're going to have to reduce the look by this much, and we're going to have to reduce the levels by this much. And so it's that question of, can we commit the resources in many cases? And if we can't commit the resources, do we have that's a funny one.
Right.
Do we have the ability to go and do it in the future? And we just tell the public we'll be working on a PS4 version and an Xbox One version at a later date. And so studios often have to make those budgetary decisions, either later or months in advance, depending. So it's studio by studio for sure. The games industry is one of those tough beasts to pin down because every studio has to make their decisions based on what they need for their studio.
Mm-hmm.
And no one studio does it the same way. Oftentimes you can go and work for like Bethesda and be doing the same job, same title in a completely different way for EA, because they just have a different way of doing things. And so it's one of those things where I would say that they oftentimes, as they're making the decisions about which platforms to support, have internal reasoning why they decide to no longer support a platform. And a lot of it usually boils down to either they don't have the personnel, or they don't have the budgets, or they don't have the time, because there's too many issues in the current version for Xbox Series X that need fixing, that they can, it would cost too much time or personnel or resources to commit for series for Xbox One. And there was a lot of news really about what happened with Cyberpunk, and it was just because it really was meant to be a next generation game, but they also wanted to collectively support the previous generation. But you can't have a next generation experience and have it be the exact same experience on a previous generation, because the technology is just not the same. It's almost like the difference between electric cars and gas cars. That would be the most apt analogy I can come up with for current gen versus Xbox One and PS4. It's that much of a difference at this point. Because they're using solid state drives on these systems now, where they would have been using hard drives before. And so the loading speeds are just that much faster. And so that hopefully kind of adds context for you.
So, Fitzgerald, what's your favorite Star Wars movie and why is it Empire Strikes Back?
Exactly. Right?
I think that's everyone's favorite, so I don't know why you're asking me.
I'm a New Hope. I love Empire, but I'm a New Hope just because that was my first experience.
Yeah, I gotta go with the New Hope.
Yep.
I love New Hope. So, Fitzgerald, did you watch Mandalorian, the one from yesterday or 2 days ago?
So, the last thing I've watched has been Kenobi.
You're breaking my heart.
Caught up on Mandalorian. Most of my day, I work typically, Eastern time, but 9 to 6, 9 to 7, depending. At least, over the past couple of weeks.
8 to 8. Yep.
And
we know it.
After that, it's does my wife want to hang out and play some game together, or do we want to watch a show or something like that? And because we're in the games industry, right, we're trying to watch stuff that isn't related to the typical things we watch. So for me nowadays it's Star Wars, so it's it's weirdly become backburnered, which isn't to say that I don't want to watch it. It's just I want to make sure that I'm engaging in things that she wants to watch, that we, so we've been watching Last of Us.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah.
Really good.
And then let's see what else.
There's another series that I wanted to tell you, totally separate, but it has a Star Wars person in it, is Shrinking. That was fantastic. That was amazing.
I love that show on Apple TV. Yeah.
Yep.
Perry Mason, second season of Perry Mason just started. Or we're 2 or 3 in. Amazing.
I haven't seen that.
Have to check it out.
It's on HBO.
What my greatest story is, guys? It's you look at what we just talked about, right? There are all these subscription options now. So it's you want to watch Shrinking, you got to get Apple TV. You want to watch Mandalorian, you got to get Disney Plus. You want to watch, I don't know, something on Netflix that's locked.
Yeah, but Netflix, you can binge watch, which is awesome. You can just be I'm going to be up for 3 days. Go through all of Karate Kid. Okay, I'm cool. Disney was the smart one of going, no, we're going to keep you hooked. That if you drop us, you're going to miss this and miss that. Instead of going, here's all of Mandalorian, here's all of whatever,
Businesses learn from each other, though, so that may have been the case and it may change, that's the thing. And so games, right? If they develop these subscription models, in order to play them, you may have to have subscriptions across the board, just like you do with the current, situation with TV shows and movies.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I sit in terms of an opinion on that, but I worry because it's just having to have a subscription, then drop it to go to another one. It's just a pain.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the way it is now, and you're right, because you're thinking, oh, it's only $10, and then of course they raise the rates over the next 3 years. It's 15, and now it's 20 over here, and then it's 60 over here, it is what it is,
So then it becomes a question of where else do you pull from, because gas is expensive, and I mean the list goes on and on. Food has been going up in price.
Food is stupid. I mean,
it's crazy.
Heavy cream, right? Which we use for coffee. Heavy cream, a half gallon or whatever the big one is. I think it's a gallon, half gallon. It's $18. It's something ridiculous, when it used to be $6.
Okay, but with this conversation, all right. So everything's going up. Have you noticed in the industry? Has there been a drop in people playing games? Because I feel more and more people are playing games. I mean,
more and more people are playing games. More or less and less people are buying them full price.
Okay.
Because I mean, for the longest time, the dollar value of a game was $60.
Yeah.
And it's only with this generation of games that you're starting to see $70,
$80.
And that only just happened in the last.
It's crazy, dude.
Year and some change, I'd say.
Hello, Rex. Yeah.
Games did not keep up with inflation, so it's been long overdue, and I get it. And I'm being in the industry, I get the reason for it. It has to happen at some point.
Yeah.
Because
everything's gone up. Minimum wage has gone up. Everything moves together, right? In the most case, I still don't understand why shipping is 20 times the cost it was.
Oh
but
my God!
Most things, kind of shift with that. It's like McDonald's; they want $20 an hour. Well, now they're replaced by kiosks, or that burger's not going to be $1.99 anymore. It's going to be $8.99 or $10.99. It's everything has a cause and a reaction, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to see it across the board. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. Until we say no, damn it, no, you can't take that. No, I don't know. I'm just saying. I think everybody's feeling the squeeze right now with where things are, and you kind of have to balance what do I really, really want. And I get it with, like you said, people don't want to pay full price for the game. That sucks for the people that are making the games, right? You're hurting yourself in the process. It's like when companies do massive layoffs, and then they can't figure out why people aren't buying their product. Well, you just laid off a bunch of people. There's nobody there to buy the product because they don't have a job now. That kind of thinking, it's like, try and do what you can to support what you like, I guess, is all I can say. Support what you really think is valuable so that it continues on. That's it. I'm done. Off of it. What? Yes, I'm done.
Good conversation right there.
Yeah.
I think Joe fell asleep. Joe, you okay?
Yeah, he's just a circle.
It's all good. So I think I want to roll into the Mandalorian, but Fitzgerald, if you're okay with spoilers, we're going to roll into that.
Go for it.
Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably take off in half an hour so that I don't miss the end of the evening with my wife, and we can watch a show or something. But I'll hang for
whenever you want. Yeah, stay as long as you want. If you want to go out earlier, you are more than welcome to, man. This is about you. This is your show. You decide.
Before we roll into Mandalorian, I'm curious. For those that are here, tell me your favorite game. Since I've had that question now. For those that have played, of course.
I have two.
That's fine.
I have. So we're talking The Division.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
I played the hell out of The Division and started playing. I played The Division, and we had regular things. We would just go into the dark zone or whatever, and run around for hours. And then the same thing with Division 2, just playing that for hours. And I was playing with guys out of England and just having a blast. And then probably the other one that I have played probably since it came out was God, now I'm going to blank on it. It's the space game. God, what is it called?
Dead Space?
Huh?
Dead Space?
No, it's the one where you start out on a planet and you got to go and get all the material.
No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky. I've been playing
No Man's Sky. That's like forever.
I leave and I come back, and I leave and I come back.
That game is one of those that had that rocky launches leading up to all the polish that it has now.
Yeah.
That is a game that I think you're going to see a lot of game history classes, for these game design college programs, because it's one of those that's for the books, where it just had rocky launch to success.
Yeah.
Well,
story.
Oh, and then I played World of Warcraft. I played that. I was playing that 4 or 5 nights a week. I went to BlizzCon in 2007.
Oh shit!
Oh, yeah. I was in deep. I'd eat in front of it. I wouldn't eat with my family. I'd eat in front of the game.
Wow, and you were an addict.
I was an addict, and I had to go cold turkey. It was
that's crazy. Dude.
Game.
One of the chat members said Ghost Recon Wildlands, and that's a fantastic game to play with 4 friends.
Yep.
Now imagine that with Star Wars characters.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what? You're hinting something.
That's a game that would be on my wish list for sure.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So I would say Division. All the Divisions were awesome. I really enjoyed those. The Titanfalls, being able to get in and out of your mech and fight however you wanted to was phenomenal. Gears of War, at least the first couple were just amazing with the storyline.
He loves Dom. Don't let him lie to you.
Yeah, that whole piece, just walking through the story and everything was phenomenal. And then I think my favorite out of all of them, and it dates back a little ways, but I would say Black Ops 2.
Oh yeah, Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fucking dope. Dude.
My favorite, and it's not an opinion, it's a fact. It's the greatest game of all time. Is Red Dead Redemption 2.
One or two though.
I was obsessed with Red Dead Redemption, and then the second one came out, and I went, man, it really can't get much better. And it's just the openness.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that game's what? That game's
He never played that.
That game's 5 years old at this point, and those graphics.
You never played it.
PS4,
never played it.
dude, you got it.
Dude,
it's I like Red Dead better than GTA, and I love GTA like everyone, but Red Dead just seems like it's just like a wholesome adventure, and you're like it's simple. You're on horses, and there's so much to do.
Yeah,
the openness of it is. If we could get a Star Wars game with the openness of Red Dead, set up camp here, I'm gonna do that. Man, that'd be wild. I gotta think one day they'll do it.
Dope, dude.
I hope so.
You just need the right story for it, because that's the big thing with Star Wars is that there has to be a story involved in some capacity.
It's a lightsaber, a Sith, and you kill them, and that's the story.
Well, that what was it? What the hell was that game that was going to come out? The Coruscant game, like 10 years back.
13.
Yeah.
Oh, 13,
and then it looked so good, and then they're just like, never mind, and it's like, damn, I get studios cut stuff like that, but man, that would have been cool for sure.
Cal Katarn.
Usually that happens just because the game is ballooning past the budgets they intend.
Yeah.
It's
a good concept.
Game. What was that one? What was the Kyle Katarn game?
Jedi Outcast series.
PS2 or whatever.
Yeah, I played that on my Mac, I think.
Oh, that was a long time ago.
The Last of Us game looks very promising. Yeah, don't watch the series. You don't want to be spoiled.
Last of Us are great games too. Yeah, those are phenomenal.
Yeah, so I like Red Dead Redemption. I like Grand Theft Auto, and Halo 3 was my favorite.
Halos are classic.
Wow.
Halo 3 is my favorite.
Those are some of the best shooters.
Oh, fuck yeah.
It is.
You guys are going to die on me. It's like I had an Atari game, the original Atari.
Back in the
then I didn't play anything until my brother got something, and I wound up playing some sort of game, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
I like that, and that was it. As soon as it started getting into too many buttons, I was too busy doing other stuff. But I had an old computer game that I really liked. It was called The Seventh Guest.
Oh,
and
I love it, dude.
You would go into different rooms and you'd have to solve puzzles and all this other stuff. And then I got the 11th hour, and I don't think I ever computed. That was it. That's the last time I played games.
Oh, dude, back in the 80s.
90s, early 90s.
I missed.
Stable.
Slow as hell.
Super Mario Kart.
Yeah, right?
Star Fox.
Yeah, but he goes into Oregon Trail. Yeah, not quite that old.
Oregon Trail. I loved Oregon Trail.
I always had a dissertation on that one.
Lemonade.
And
even Oregon Trail for our keyboard class in high school.
Right?
That's some nostalgia right there for me.
There was another one that my father had on the IBM. This would have been mid-'80s, and it was called Adventure. And it was a word game. There was no graphics to it. It was all words. And then you get stuck in the twisty passages or whatever. And
Zork.
We had it all printed out on the huge freaking dot matrix paper and being able to follow. Yeah. I come from way back when in the history of the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, where you are now and what you're a part of and what you're doing, dude, it's my hat's off to you. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What was the Elder Scrolls Online? I played that all the way through, and you beat the guy at the end, and then it moves you to that whole other new area.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. I played that all the way through, and then I went to the new area. I did something, and I screwed up my save, and I lost it all.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
They have ways, I think, now of establishing your character if you reach out to their customer support.
Yeah, it's been. I should do that because it's been forever. But yeah, I should reach out.
I forget forget the name of the company who does it, but one of my other favorite games is Until Dawn, and they just did The Quarry. Man, those games, if you guys haven't played them, if you're in the chat or wherever, just the graphics are phenomenal, and it's like a loose, free roam. You kind of
like Fallout.
Those are fun for streams because you can like set up a stream and then have all of the chat like vote.
Yeah,
and
which
then,
choice
try
to do
act
and
it out.
stuff.
Those are
Yeah.
great streaming games.
Oh,
Yeah, but like Jason, you don't know the struggle of only having one button and a joystick that doesn't want to move, and you've got this pixel guy, and you're like, "What is he doing?" Yeah,
playing Duck Hunt. Yeah.
I bought the
Listen to him, Duck Hunt. You're not talking that.
I bought the, what was it, the Atari, the 50th, where it had all the games plus Reimagined. And I went through because my kids have never seen the original Asteroids.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, sit down and watch this. This is how I started,
Missile Command. Yeah.
They're like
yeah.
2 seconds into it. Can we go play outside?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Can we get on our phone? They're probably on their phones.
I think we had more imagination back then. Maybe that's what needs to come back. I mean, today it's like the games that are out there today are visually amazing. There's nothing left. You are in a movie. You are in a sim or whatever you want to call it, right? Whereas back then you kind of had to use your imagination because the commercials for those video games back then would be amazing, right?
Yeah.
And have real life actors and it look all cool. And then you look at the game and it looked like your kid, a 3-year-old drew it because it was so pixelated and so bad. But it was the commercial that would get you into it. Now that's a reality. That shit's amazing.
The indie game scene is doing that where they're trying to kind of fill that void by making games that kind of invoke the imagination more. And they're taking risks that the bigger studios don't because they're used to sticking with, their franchises and stuff. And so a lot of innovation in games is being seen in the indie scene, and it's kind of flows upwards now from the indie scene to the bigger, because they look at the successes in the indie scene and they kind of learn from each other. Yeah. So you might yet see some of it.
I'm waiting for flying cars next. I mean, come on, the video games have gotten so cool.
Skateboards first.
Let's bring up the rest of the stuff. Yeah, hoverboards, right?
Along with your flying cars, I'll raise you delivery drones.
Yes. See, delivery drones.
Well, that's already happening.
There was a Mark Rober video where they showed delivery drones with like, they were doing like, it was in Africa. There was a company that was delivering blood, and like literally within 3 to 4 hours saving a life. And that, to me, just the coolest thing.
Right? Yeah.
I'm all for like tech that helps people.
Straight off the black market. All of us collectors are selling kidney and blood to get our points.
Oh man, yeah. I like I said, I always ask, if I sell a kidney, how much can I get for it, and can I get more if I take it out myself?
Right.
I don't know if you'll survive that, but
it's worth a try.
Nice.
Yeah.
I can buy more Star Wars stuff. Yeah, exactly.
What?
Or just get the
Good work.
if I know what I'm doing.
just get a lightsaber, then you can cauterize it as you remove it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Dude, does anybody think this is totally off topic? But when you brought up lightsaber, it's like we've always wanted a real lightsaber, lights up, and we're pretty close, but we still have, the tube, the blade that's stuck to it. There's no way to do. And what Disney's doing, it's like, the freaking thing's this big. But if it was a real lightsaber that could actually cut like that, I don't think most of us would make it. To be honest, I really don't. You cut off fingers within a second, or swing it around and take off half of your head, or that's.
It'd be Lord of the Flies because all the parents would kill themselves.
Yeah, right. It would be. Yeah, it'd probably be a horrible thing to have. Have you ever hidden? Oh, nice.
No, Rex, and it's just because I've not been in situations where I've been sitting with the developers when they've been working on the games. Like in real time, and that's usually the where those kinds of things happen is you have to be sitting with the people that are making the game, and we didn't really talk about it, but like oftentimes these bigger studios, they have different floors that have different development disciplines. And so, you'll have all your developers on one floor. These are the people that make the game. Another floor will have marketing and HR and, the business functions of a company. And then the other side is going to have like, quality assurance and like some of the other stuff that needs to happen to make the game function on the back end.
Yeah, the further you go to shareholders, the less fun it is.
So I've not had the opportunity. I would love to at some point, and it's on my bucket list for sure. But someday, right? So,
what game's been out that you wish you could have had a part in? Like directors, like, oh, I wish I could have directed that movie. Like, what game's out there that you're like, man, I had a hand in?
Battlefront 2, for sure.
Battlefront 2.
Nice.
If just to like see it through from the start, to see more of the content that we love be put into it, So like we talked about No Man's Sky, we talked about kind of these games that like grew from launch to where they are now, and I would have loved to see that through, to see more of the content along the way. But I think that it was also a product of its environment at the time, and a lot of these games were on that precipice of live service type games where they would have been trying to do these loot boxes and cosmetic transactions and those kinds of things where you're buying things to put into the game for your personalized experience. And so as much as I would love to be in that situation where I could be making the decisions around it, I would not want to do it in the time frame it was happening in. I would want to do it now. Release the game now with me working on it now, I guess, to answer your question. Because if you asked me to do it within the time, then I would probably change my answer.
Yeah.
Because a lot of games are built in the products of their environments, and the decisions of the larger sphere. And so, there was a great point that was brought up earlier. I don't know who said it, but basically, like, you make a game, and because it takes 2 years to develop, the base framework of it, maybe the trend has moved on, and it's like those kinds of things that, like, live action games were popular. Sorry, live service games were popular for X amount of years before the zeitgeist changes. Basically, the interest in a game changes, and so the games have to change with them. And so a lot of what a marketing team is doing is trying to forecast what the trends are going to be to help the development team decide what kind of game we're going to make when they're at that like pre-production phases, the concept phases, the decision-making phases,
Okay.
Because they just don't have the bandwidth to shift the mountain otherwise down the line.
Yeah.
How far do you think we are from a Ready Player One type of a game? You remember the movie?
I think you're starting to see the core components come through that are needed for it to happen, because you've got AI, you've got the evolution of VR, and now the beginnings of AR. So like, however your feelings are about Facebook and those kinds of devices, the Meta device that came out recently is like $1,500, is a great example of what I'm talking about with like AR capable devices, where you put the headset on, you can see everything in front of you, you can play games on that device, but it's meant to be a device that allows you to work with your coworkers. So they talk about this, what do they call it? Like these environments where you're socializing with your coworkers, and they're developing kind of like virtual worlds for that. And I forget what it's called. It's just escaping me right now. But the idea being, you log into your work and you're seeing your coworker's avatar.
Like a metaverse thing?
Yes, thank you. So these metaverses are currently being developed by a lot of these large hardware companies, because they know that they need, kind of A and B to make it work. So we're on that precipice of getting the core components, I believe, to make that happen.
Okay.
So like Ready Player One, right? You had cosmetics, so you could make your character look a certain way. If you watched Free Guy, that was a great example of cosmetics, where you see characters donning their favorite clothes on their avatar, that kind of stuff. And so the metaverse gets developed, then you make your character look the way you want, you add in the work space so that you're working remotely in AR, seeing your coworkers with their avatars, their perfect versions of themselves. Yeah. So we're already there for the framework. Now it's the evolution of the framework.
Holodecks. I agree with you, Santino. That would be really cool. Right?
Or the replicator. That's another one.
It's like run the Spice Runners Lounge program. Okay.
You guys have to get out that Star Trek shit.
No, I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's beating the man.
Star Trek and Star Wars, like, they all have things to learn from each other. I say that with all the best intent, because like,
with the best respect of everything.
Sure, but like think about it, right? Like you take the replicator, for example, or the holodeck, right? What's to say Star Wars doesn't have something like that?
Right.
Well, I'm sure they do.
Wouldn't you want to see their version of it? Wouldn't that be the most interesting thing?
Yeah.
I'm always going to be a proponent of, I'd like to see Star Wars' version of something rather than not.
Yeah,
because I find that super freaking interesting.
Well, it's like for us, like Brian, probably the same way. We grew up watching the old Star Treks before Star Wars even existed.
Right.
That was like our first sci-fi kind of a thing that was out there, besides Batman and
Yeah.
And then Star Wars, and it's like Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever, Star Wars. But yeah.
I just like to see the worlds get expanded, whatever worlds that we enjoy. It's nice to see what can be, I guess. That's kind of where my mind goes.
What would be badass is if you guys took like your movie versions from the games, your video, and turned it into a damn movie. I think that'd be a little more popular.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. That would work. That would be very cool.
Come on, it's not making that either.
Like Eclipse or
that was
the Old Republic or those video clips they have. Hands down would be a badass movie.
Right.
I don't know what they're doing.
It has to do with budget 9 times out of 10.
Money.
I think their budget would be blown out of the water, and I think they're probably trying to gear it for the next generation of kids. But the kids will watch what the dads are watching, or the parents.
Well, it's like I remember having that. What was it? The Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Yeah.
Back when I was way young, it's the same thing with like even video games where you're not really playing, you're just choosing which direction things are going.
Yeah.
Some of them, yeah.
For younger
Fallout's
generations.
Fallout 3 was like that.
Yeah. But nowadays, kids are born with a game controller and an iPad in one hand, and they can just go right in and start playing this stuff.
Right.
My wife and I, we don't have kids, but I really want to, when we get there, teach them the value of making, for me.
Absolutely.
That's it for me, because there's just something to the imagination where you're sitting there and making something out of nothing.
Yep.
Even if they don't end up doing that as a career, that doesn't matter to me. I just want them to have to influence an interest in and a positive attitude around the idea of just building and making and imagining.
Yeah. No, exactly, and having those types of skills, because they've been getting more and more lost in the last 20 years. Even longer. People aren't the skilled craftsmen anymore because they think it's beneath them, or they can get somebody else to do it. Well, if you're always counting on other people to do something for you, you're going to run out of people that do. You're going to have to figure it out at some point, right?
Right. It's a sliding scale, I suppose.
Yeah. And the thing that's cool about the trades, like, learning even the stupid things, plumbing, metalwork, woodworking, electrical, any of that type of stuff, you can fix anything pretty much, let alone actually go in and build something like, hey, I need new cabinets. I'm just going to make them.
Yeah.
Or a new table, or I want to build a model. Even that kind of stuff. It's fun, and it's good skills to have rather than sitting on your game. Sorry, I'm going to say it. Instead of sitting on your game all the time, learn how to
Well,
make them.
the game can inspire that creativity, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like or a movie even or a show. It's like if you see something really cool, but you have developed that passion to imagine it from nothing,
right?
Then you can then take that and make that really cool thing you saw. Like that in tandem can really make it special. You know, where you're tying experiences together.
4 or 3, introduce them at any age.
Yeah, shit,
right.
daughter can see all the characters at 4.
Because the thing is, the movies were made for the kids. Originally, that was the goal, right? So seeing Star Wars at 7 years old, I was hooked. Totally hooked into it. There was no bad name. There was no, I guess the goriest thing was, what's his name's arm getting cut off.
Right.
That was it. I could handle it, and kids today can definitely handle it.
My nephew my niece and nephew just turned 7, and we were out there the other week, and
dude,
it was the cutest thing. My nephew knows I love Star Wars, so he got at Disney. He got a Chewbacca, and he was like, he had to show it off to me, so because he knew that I would appreciate it. Everyone that was there, I would appreciate it. Got a kick out of that.
Right.
I guess it's like kind of piggybacking off of the answer to that question. I would say that like as you're showing them, whatever age you're showing them, just have that discussion about, that might have been scary. This is what was happening.
I was never scared of Vader or anything at 7. Were any of you guys scared of any characters in the Star Wars?
More like the arm chopping off. You can say that.
No, I don't think.
No, when I started getting freaked out, it was like The Exorcist.
Yeah, right. Stuff that Halloween, whatever, scary movies. Yeah, American Werewolf in London I saw in 1980. I was 10 years old. That one I liked it, but it wasn't the werewolf that freaked me out. It was his buddy Jack, as he was constantly deteriorating.
Yeah.
And here's something you all don't need to know. That guy that played Jack, I guess, was Carrie Fisher's first.
What?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he deflowered her.
You're making that up.
No, I'm not.
Prove it.
If you prove it, I think it's on Amazon. There's a documentary with Carrie Fisher and her mom, Debbie Reynolds, and he's in that and he talks about it.
What?
Yeah.
The things you learn.
Yes, exactly. The more you know. Bling.
Guys, so we're at almost 2.5 hours.
Yeah, we're good. We should call it.
Yeah.
Took you away from Mandalorian, and I'm sorry.
It's all good. We can talk about that offline or next week.
Yeah.
So Fitzgerald, tell us where we can find you at, man.
Well, certainly we've talked about Discord. If you want to keep up with the stuff I make, it's definitely going to be Instagram for now until I get the YouTube channel up and running.
Mm-hmm.
If you like Star Wars themed music that isn't made by Disney at all, there's the stuff I make, which you can find links to on our Discord. And then it's also available pretty much everywhere there's streaming for music. So check out Mapuzo, which is Mapuzo Outpost. And there's a volume 2 and a volume 1. Sorry, volume 1 and volume 2, brain. And those are going to be used for hopefully anything content creators make in the future for Star Wars. And, certainly my YouTube channel in the near future, as well as anything we do. So if you want easy ways to use that music, just, if you post stuff on Instagram that has a video, just use the little music sticker and then look up Mapuzo Outpost, and you can use it right then and there.
Well, it's definitely a pleasure having you on the show, man. So thanks so much for coming on and your time. And I think everybody else enjoyed it, the gaming community. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm happy to answer questions any time of the week. So, don't hesitate to reach out to me on Discord or Instagram or whatever. And, I'm happy to talk Star Wars, talk how to get into the game.
Apparently, we've been talking for a while.
Right.
That's funny. Dude.
I'm just going through it now. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we're going to call it a night. So thank you, Fitzgerald, for being here tonight.
No worries.
I'll put your information in the description. So if anybody wants to follow you and learn more about gaming, check out his link tree. As the Discord channel, like you mentioned, and Fitzgerald is a wealth of knowledge in the gaming industry. So thank you for being here tonight, and looking forward to more stuff from you, man.
Hell yeah,
Absolutely.
honor, dude.
Thanks, guys.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
It's fun being here. So thanks for everything.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And let's see, which outro should I give you? I'm gonna give you a Falcon.